Protesters gathered in Arizona this weekend to protest and cast doubt on the legitimacy of the electoral process there. Why? Because their candidate is losing.
I believe at this point we need to just have a new election at this point, and we need to do paper ballots, and we need to do it all in one day and be done with it. We can't expect, it's an absurd notion to sit here and play this charade and act like after this counting that we won't have tainted results either way.
But democracy is not a static thing, as we know. It lives and it breathes and must constantly be defended against those who would destroy it. We're still a young country.
Oh my God. Are they going to bully Frank Luntz? Because that's pretty funny. I don't think that they will, because CNN is just like right wing. That'd be pretty funny, though.
Make no mistake about it. On November 8th, millions of Americans went to the polls, and they did exactly that. A lot of folks got it wrong. So,
is Chuck Schumer almost as unbearable as Nancy Pelosi? Maybe I'm just ageist, lol. No, Chuck Schumer is 100% as unbearable as Nancy Pelosi, and is actually worse than Nancy Pelosi. Chuck Schumer's whip is Dick Durbin. Dick Durbin is another like elitist Democratic Party operative who is horrible at whipping votes in the Senate, which is why we always arrive at all these fucking issues. But those issues cannot be placed on Chuck Schumer's shoulders alone. Those issues are structural because the Democratic Party is fundamentally aligned with capital. Okay? Nancy Pelosi, on the other hand, is crafty as far as keeping her party in line. Nancy Pelosi is very good at keeping the House in line. Oftentimes she does it for her own benefit, okay? But she is significantly better, and this is not just me. This is like people that are way more involved behind closed doors within the Democratic Party's infrastructure will openly admit this. They always say Nancy Pelosi is an insane fundraiser, which is why she rose to success within the Democratic Party. And also on top of that, she knows how to fucking crack her whip. Keep her party in line.
How did the pundits and the poll watchers get this election so wrong? One of them, you see right here, is Mr. Frank Luntz, and he tweeted out on election eve. He said, this is what he said. He said, when the dust settles from the 2022 midterms, the GOP will have between 233 and 240 House seats, outdoing their total from 1994.
Here it is, by the way, Frank Luntz, who has he's like tweeted about me too. He's like a very interesting guy. I would not have expected him to know who I was. But Frank is a very interesting dude. Was the Ellen Luntz? I mean, he's like the typical right-wing pollster. He'd be very bad at his job if he didn't know who you were. I think he's still not very good at his job. Regardless of knowing who the fuck I am.
Republicans will also take control of the Senate. So let's bring in now the pollster and communication strategist, the man behind that tweet, and Mr. Frank Luntz. Good morning.
And I've acknowledged it on tweets since then, and I don't see any pollsters showing up. Where the hell are you?
Yeah, well, you are. So what happened? How did so many people, including you, get it so wrong? And as I said in the beginning there, we tend to over-index, and we've been doing it since 2016, over-indexing the MAGA part of the electorate.
There is a fear that they did not include enough Republicans in their samples because we knew from 2016, 2018, and even 2020 that Trump voters tended not to respond to pollsters because they thought that the results would be used against them. So there was an effort to, as you say, over-index this time. That's number one. Number two is that people came to the polls and they finally decided enough is enough. About 8-9% of the public changes, they come in undecided and they have to decide what they're going to do at that moment. And they come in potentially wanting to vote one way and they end up voting the other. The thing that the Republicans,
what do you mean by that?
Where they come in and they think I'm going to vote Republican. And then they go and they have to decide, do they actually pull the ballot?
So he looks like Ben Affleck's out-of-shape brother. Yikes, dude. I mean, kind of true, though. You're kind of giving him a dub there, to be honest.
Or do they want to make a statement by voting Democrat? 8% of the population comes in, and they may change their minds. And third is that the independents, and this is where the Republicans have to take very close analysis to, the independents usually break 55-45 Republican. If they break 60-40, Republicans win. In this case, they broke 50-50. That's a real problem for the GOP. It's a major drop. And one more.
Yeah.
Republicans actually got 5 million more votes for the House than the Democrats. 5 million. So why don't the results show themselves in the congressional races? The answer, redistricting. That it had a bigger impact against the GOP than anybody realized, and you could not know this until election day.
On a larger scale, what happened here in New York?
You brought up independents, right? And one of the splits I saw was 49-47.
That's crazy, man. I can't believe Republicans have 5 million more votes than the Democrats do in the House currently, as California ballots are at 42%. I mean, that's nuts, dude. Like, are you serious? You can't be doing that right now. Not a single soul in CNN is going to be like, wow, really? That seems great. Like, he doesn't think that he doesn't think that that's going to fucking, I don't know, change the dynamic a little bit. That's crazy. Meanwhile, the Dems are up by 20 plus million more in the Senate. Why doesn't he mention that? Because he's a right-winger. That's why. He is right-wing. And he's also, there's two factors at play here. One, Frank Luntz is a right-wing pollster, okay? And two, he has to run damage control because, well, he's not a pollster. He's a fucking, he's the guy that sits people down and asks them questions. What is that called again? I can't believe I'm forgetting the name right now. Oh, my God. He's the focus group guy. He's a right-wing focus group guy, okay? I mean, I guess technically he's a pollster too, but he needs to defend. He needs to defend his. Oh yeah, here it's at 28%. Sorry, it's not even like LA County's at fucking 28%. That's insane, dude. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, he has to defend his job here. Otherwise, people go, why would we do that? Like, why would we listen to you ever again? After every election cycle, people fucking do this. After every election cycle, people always do this. But this is a huge factor, as I already mentioned. Low turnout in urban safe D seats, more uncontested Republican races, strong D incumbents and problematic Republicans in swing seats. The swing in the House vote versus 2020 is currently Republican plus 7.9, but Republicans are on track to net just 2% of House seats. So people in fucking safe blue districts are like, yeah, I don't really give a shit. I'm not going to go and vote. Uncontested Republican races in California votes outstanding can't be overstated enough. Yeah. California, Washington, Oregon are like 50% counted. The right wing has been screaming this state for the whole weekend. And many are claiming it's fraud now. Dave is an idiot that will contract like 2+ points. Yeah, there are people are looking for a lot of irregularities. Irregular blob, thank you for the 5 get the subs. People are looking for a lot of irregularities right now to make sense of what just happened. And a lot of pollsters are going to give you information that is weird. That's why I haven't had any pollsters on when I talk about like analysis, and instead have had people like Osita on. And I'm going to have Felix Biederman of Trapo Trap House on to talk about what fucking happened. The reason why I don't want to have pollsters on is because their job right now is to make sense of the senseless and defend their previous position, because that's what their legitimacy hinges on people believing them. And if people turn around and say, man, you really fucked up big time, what is this about? Then all of a sudden they're going to lose their fucking influence. So of course they are going to do this shit. It's just copium.
When you said 50-50, but we get the gist. The Wall Street Journal editorial board this morning writes, the message couldn't be clearer. Independent voters in swing states may be unhappy with the direction of the country, but they didn't trust the GOP enough to give them power. They go on to say that party will have to adjust its policy on abortion and its message for 2024.
You can never ask people to adjust their policies based on elections. Sometimes principles are more important. And you have to be able to convince the American people that even if they disagree with you on that principle, you are worthy of their support. So I challenge their changing their position. That said, they have to accept that if they're going to be that strict on abortion, they're going to turn off younger voters, which voted overwhelmingly Democrat, and they're going to turn off women, which voted significantly Democratic. And that's the way it is. There are times when you don't follow the polls. There are times when you look at people straight in the eye and you say, enough. I hear you. I know where you stand. I'm simply against it. But then accept what happens to you on Election Day.
Since you mentioned young voters, Kate, let me make this point, please. Pardon me, just before it, so because I don't want it to get past. A presidential advisor said, I was telling the POTUS the entire time that the streets were not saying what the polls were saying and that young people were coming out.
That's a given. That's not so insight. I don't want to be critical of that person. Yeah, the young people were voting, but the young people still vote on a much smaller percentage than their parents, and a
He's not
really
wrong
tiny
about that.
percentage compared to their grandparents.
Yeah.
So to me,
He's right
I
about
want to
that.
look forward. I want to take where we stand right now and focus on what it means over the next few weeks and next few months. Everybody's rehashing.
I mean, he's wrong on like, listen. He's wrong on what. He's wrong on trying to fucking defend why he was wrong, and he's wrong to do that. But he is right when he says, like, yes, young people do not vote in high numbers, and young people did not vote in higher numbers than prior elections. Well, at least the last midterm election, where young people voted in higher numbers. Okay? I think they make up. Fuck, I was listening to NPR this morning. I think it's around like 12%. Like the final tally so far indicates that the young demo that went out and voted was like 12% of the overall voting block. Actually, I think that's bullshit because old people have had much more time to bolden their political stances. No, it's not that. It's simpler. I mean, that is a factor. Confidence is a factor. But the biggest factor is something super simple. Okay? It is way harder for someone who's 18 to go out and vote than it is for someone who's 65. A 65-year-old has a house. A 65-year-old has no job. A lot of fucking time on their hands. A 65-year-old is constantly watching TV and learning about what's going on in the world. A 65-year-old, like you said, has, well-defined ideological positions, or at least a track record, if you look at American voting history, a track record of voting for one party over the other over the course of many, many years. An old person also has a car, usually. A young person does not. There is so many factors, like structural factors at play, like that make it super, super easier for old people to fucking go out and vote in comparison to young people that, when people fucking cast young people aside and say, man, nobody gives a shit about voting. Yeah, that's true. There are young people who just don't give a shit about voting, certainly. Okay? But the system is also designed to make sure that they can't fucking vote, even if they want to. The system is designed in many places to make it as difficult as possible to vote, even if you want to vote. And that stuff matters, right? Like, it might come across like a marginal inefficiency to someone like yourself, especially if you live in like a suburb and your mom can like drive you to the fucking polling station, and your polling station doesn't have that long of a fucking wait, and you don't have a job that requires you to go immediately into work. So you can't really sit at the polling station for 3.5 fucking hours, but you don't have to. All of those factors are basically just individual factors that make it easier for you to vote, and it stops you from recognizing how difficult it is for other people to vote. That's it. It is literally not as complicated as people sometimes make it out to be. very interesting thing. Politics is sometimes very simple to understand. Or elections are sometimes very simple to understand. Like marginal differences can lead to dramatically different results. Like drastically different results.
In the past. And that's why people had enough of Donald Trump. He wasn't rehashing last week. He was rehashing what happened 2 years ago. We need to look forward. That's what the American people are asking of all of us. Okay, it's done. We voted. We have a really, really split government right now. Now let's move forward and see if we can get something done.
I want to get to the Trump aspect of this because I know you just did a focus group this weekend with people about who they prefer. But on the polling, I think people do not trust polls right now. They did not trust them after 2016. But how do you fix it?
I don't. You don't.
So polling is irrelevant.
You guys spend way too much time focused on who's going to win and lose and trying to predict that.
Isn't that what you do? You're a
pollster.
I don't.
Oh my God, dude. Oh my. It's your fault. He said it's your fault. Bro, that's crazy. Homie said it's your fault. That's a wild take, okay? I mean, oh God, that's such a good way to fucking deflect away because, like, it is their fault to a certain degree because they are the commentators who are trying to make sense of it all. Like, that's why it's the perfect counter, okay? Because they're both responsible and they're sitting at a fucking table going, we're all trying to find out who is responsible for this. It's like, bro, you all are.
I don't do that. I don't do that. I haven't worked in a political campaign in more than a decade.
Dog, the conversation literally started with Frank Luntz making a prediction that fell flat on its face.
I used the numbers that were given to me by the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee. And no matter what they say
Frank,
now...
how can you say that? Your tweet just said before...
Yeah, like, dog, the reason why we have you on is because you're the fucking... you are the poll guy. You are the focus group guy. Your entire job is to literally fucking tell people... I listen to the people on the ground. I found the best people possible. And I know what the people on the fucking ground feel. And this is why this is going, it's to just like make sense of the polls. Okay? That's it.
Predict this person is this group will win.
Based on their polling, not my polling.
So then here's my question on that, which is, because this is correct. People are saying, well, the media said this, the pundit said this. Democrats also thought they were not going to fare very well on Tuesday night. Now they're obviously happy that they did, but they were bracing for losses. How did their pollsters fix this? Is there any point in polling essentially anymore if you can't get it right?
What a great lesson to the media.
Very good question.
Stop focusing on the who's up and who's down and start trying to understand why. Give us insight. Give us information that we can use. People watch this show because they're more informed by giving you their 10 or 15 or 30 minutes. They watch because they really care about what's going on and they want to stay up to date on all the events that are important. They're not asking you to project the future. They want to fully and completely understand the present. So let's go back to using polling for what it was meant to do. Insight, information, knowledge, and if you're lucky, wisdom. But you got to show that you got to show that focus group because that's what's really important.
We do, because you spoke to these are Trump voters.
Yes, all of them.
And here's what they think about what they want 2024 to look like.
To me, he's a much more polished version of Trump. He's willing to kind of fight back and willing to go after it, but he does it in a way where he doesn't degrade or say things that are just off-putting.
That's
talking about DeSantis. Yeah.
Yes, and almost every one of them, they all voted for Trump 2 years ago, and almost all of them would vote for DeSantis today. They appreciate what Trump did. They appreciate his agenda, but they don't appreciate him as a person, and they're actually worn out with him as a person. And I believe that if Trump goes ahead and announces tomorrow, he doesn't understand the world that has been created over the last week. And Trump's vicious, brutal attacks, not just of DeSantis, but also of the Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, The Republicans are beginning to say, okay, enough already.
Who we insulted with a racist
Yes,
slur.
I appreciate all that you did. I respect what you went through, but go home.
What else did you learn? I mean, that's one of the reasons we love having you, is because you'll be so candid about, when I got it wrong, but also because you spend so much of your time speaking with these people. What else did you learn from that focus group that surprised you?
We did a study for the American Conservation Coalition about climate. I'll give you an example. The Republicans seem to be hostile to climate.
I think one of the funniest parts about like polling, or I guess like focus grouping too, is that you're never going to find like normal motherfuckers who answer a landline or respond to a poll or go on a fucking focus group. So like the best you can do is literally draw on this like untapped fresh hell of fucking freaks and weirdos who are going to give you some of the most unhinged opinions. Or people who just want to make money, right? So ultimately, you're like, I don't know. You're in a unique predicament. You're never gonna arrive at like a serious, like polling this chat for like age demographics is a consistently better method than what these guys are doing almost. And their job is really, really, really hard. Don't get me wrong. Trying to make sense of a country like the United States of America that has like deliberately weird, mystified politics, and where the constituencies in any given district has inherently contradictory positions that they believe in, it's always going to be really fucking difficult. Not hard is white supremacy, duh. I mean, but you're not talking about like polling at that point. You're talking about, structural bigotry and structural inefficiencies caused by
Climate
bigotry.
legislation.
Systemic oppression.
The young people in particular and the party in general has to tackle climate. It doesn't mean that they have to go all in with the Biden proposal.
Yeah, exactly, Doodles Dan. Like that fucking guy in Pennsylvania who had all head-to-toe Trump garb, right? And he was at the fucking Dr. Oz rally, and he literally said, when asked the question by the Guardian reporter, what do you think about $15 minimum wage? He straight up said, $15 is too low. It needs to be way, way higher than $15. I'm like, bro, you're at a Trump rally. Brother, you know where you are? Like, do you know what you're wearing right now? What the fuck? That's a crazy fucking take. But that is the most American take. Okay?
It doesn't mean that they have to shut off exploration for energy, but it does mean that if they don't respect and appreciate and make specific, tangible efforts on the climate issue, then the voters are going to continue to reject them. And it's not just climate. It's on the economy. It's on taxes. It's on the budget.
It's on abortion. We saw that play in the election. No, listen, but we're running out of time here before I go. So is this, everyone asks, is this Trumpism is over, right? Don, is Trumpism over? Is this the last gasp of Trumpism?
Let's see what he says.
This is Friday the 13th, part 15. Freddie always comes back just when you think he's done.
Jeez.
Also, didn't we just say we shouldn't be projecting what's going to happen? So yeah, we'll wait to see what the voters decide.
Thank you, Caitlin.
It's for winners,
Yeah.
but I mean, if you look at the donors that are running away from him, if you look at the media, the Trump-supported right-wing media, the Murdoch media, who are moving away from Trump, I think that's a fair question. Is it, are people just over it?
Dumb. You covered the cycle when the Rupert Murdoch media was expressly anti-Trump. Why do people not remember 2015 as a year? 2015 was when people were super anti-Trump on the Republican side, but it didn't fucking matter. Why are these people just going, oh my God, like 2015 was not a real year. It's only 2016 onward. And now they're behaving this way. It's like, no, dude, it's just the base. Republicans run to their base. Democrats run against their base, okay? You've been covering politics for this long, you should fucking know that. What the actual fuck? Do you know if this is accurate? Sorry if you addressed this. Yeah, I don't know if this is real or not. I have heard this. I didn't want to talk about it. I've been looking into it further. I know that they have arrested a fuck ton of protesters. And I know that one out of all the protesters they've arrested thus far has been sentenced for the death penalty. And they're slated to give the death penalty to 5 additional people. I don't know if this is, there's just no way to know what is truthful and what is not truthful because of so many conflicting, when it comes to covering a country like Iran, there is such a devastating media blackout and the control of information is so, heavily scrutinized and hard to discern. And then there's also state actors at play that want to ham up a narrative in one direction or the other, that it is really difficult to figure out what the truth is in a situation like this. Like there are 14,000 to 15,000 people that have been arrested for protesting. I don't think that they're going to actually do that. But I don't know. I mean, Iran is brutal. Iran is a brutal country. But no matter how brutal a regime is, no matter how brutal a form of governance is, they still recognize that if fucking hundreds of thousands of people, on the fucking ground that are protesting against the government, you fucking kill 100 of them, they're going to lose their shit. Okay? And to be fair, like, there's a lot of, this was a recommendation by the legislature towards the judiciary, not a judicial ruling yet, but yes, like 230 of 290 voted to execute all the people arrested. Then also on top of that, there was another like dude that came out. I forget who it was, but he said like, we should rape them so they go to hell. So they can't even go to fucking heaven or some shit. Like just unhinged, insane, psychopathic, bloodthirsty, fundamentalist dickheads that are popping off on millions of people that truly just want civil liberties and deserve to have civil liberties. That was a quote from 2000, but yeah, it gives you an idea of your leadership. Oh, that was actually not a new one? Oh, okay. Well, that also kind of shows you how the media is also like using any and every opportunity to just like look at a place where the people are already fucking brutal and awful and backwards. Not the people on the ground, but like the leadership is. And then adding on to the pile. I thought it was a new one, though. Maybe I'm wrong. But again, it's very difficult to figure out what is real and what is not real when it comes to covering countries like Turkey as well. I know this from my own personal experience. Okay? I'm Turkish. My family's still in fucking Turkey. Okay? I'm Turkish. My family's still in Turkey. Allegedly a terror attack happened. Like a bomb exploded in Taksim, right? And even then, it is very difficult to figure out who did it and why they did it. It is not as simple as the way that people make it out to be. It's even in America, this shit is crazy, right? Even in America, sometimes something happens in Oklahoma, you see a lot of fucking misinformation. And the free flowing of information in America is significantly better than countries like Iran and Turkey, right? So if it happens here and it happens in your fucking backyard and you're still like, I don't know what the fuck happened there in that situation, then you have to recognize that it's functionally impossible to truly arrive at the truth on things like this. Even though more than, I think 300 people have already been killed in the protests on the streets in general. They're fucking awful. Like, the Iranian government is awful. I will not defend them on their brutal domestic policy, horrifying, brutal domestic policy. It is also paired up with an unjustifiable collective punishment in the form of sanctions placed upon the Iranian government, which has, as far as domestic policy or as far as foreign policy goes, complied with the denuclearization agreement under Donald Trump's regime in America, and yet still the people are punished. So no matter what happens, it's the people that get shafted. It's the people of Iran that get shafted and are getting fucked over by both global superpowers who are, agitating them to push back against a regime that they are almost fundamentally powerless to undermine and even have less power to truly topple. And yes, their current government in power is in part due to historical U.S. and British interference, of course. Are you talking about the woman who took her hijab off and got sent to jail? That's what it started off as, but this is things like this. Things like this don't happen in a vacuum, okay? You don't have hundreds of thousands of people. You don't have hundreds of thousands of people fucking rush to the streets for just one singular instance. It's not. There are also, and she didn't just go to jail, she was killed by the morality police. But these are tensions that have been building up for many, many decades, okay? This last instance was a tipping point that is unlike previous tipping points that people thought were tipping points. And hundreds of people have been brutally killed in the subsequent protests, and tens of thousands of people have been arrested. Okay? And in those protests, are there foreign actors? Are there foreign agitators? Certainly. Does that justify the government's brutal way of dealing with them? Absolutely not. Do foreign actors make up a significant amount of protesters? Abso-fucking-lutely not. No shot. What is far larger, what is playing a far larger influence on these protests is not only the government's own unjustifiable actions, okay, it's brutal action towards those who it declares an enemy of the state, but also the volatility caused by collective punishment. And a lot of people in positions of power in the State Department or in American politics will look at that and go, that's a success. That's a resounding success. We finally got the people of Iran to be angry enough at their government to just push back. Okay? Because there's a lot of economic instability in Iran. There's a lot of volatility in Iran because they can't participate with the global marketplace. Okay? They can't. So that creates a tense environment when you can't get fucking medicine, when you can't get the vials to put medicine in, you know what I mean? When the government is having a hard time, fulfilling certain commodities that are an absolute necessity for survival. And that is, depending on which way you look at it, if you're like a bloodthirsty, unhinged, pro-America sicko, you look at those sanctions, you go, that's actually fire. Thank God those sanctions have triggered this widespread of a protest. if you're not, if you're a humanitarian person, you look at that and you go, that's adding an unnecessary amount of pressure on the Iranian population that is already being fucking brutalized by the Iranian government. The sanctions did not cause the protest, lol. If you think that widespread sanctions have not caused instability, then you do not understand the purpose of sanctions. My uncle was killed in the 80s by this government. People are finally fed up and just want the rest of the world to lend an ear. No, you just said can't get insulin. What do you mean? Where do you think that came from? And by the way, you and I are not on the opposing side of this argument. Yes, it is first and foremost absolutely the fault of the oppressive government, the oppressive, authoritarian, theocratic state. 100%. But it's been going on for 43 fucking years. The tipping point is coming now as a consequence of 43 years of oppression, plus the sanctions that continue to make things way worse for the Iranian population. Just look at what Pompeo said on the sanctions. February 14, 2019, the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told CBS News, things are much worse for the Iranian people with the U.S. sanctions, and we are convinced that that will lead to the Iranian people to rise up and change the behavior of the regime. Yeah. I personally think, like, America playing puppet master in these sorts of circumstances is pretty fucking nasty. I'll be honest. Like, so nasty that it's almost like, it's like literally worse than decapitating heads of state. You know what I mean? Straight up. Because, like, from a utilitarian perspective, if you decapitate a head of state, you have the capacity to turn them into martyrs. You have a capacity to galvanize the reactionary forces within the population, which literally happened. It probably, if anything, Trump's actions towards Soleimani literally extended the period of time where Iran was not, like, the Iranian people were not actually fucking pushing back against their government. So that is also despicable behavior that backfires. Okay? That's also despicable behavior and violent behavior that backfires, right? The Islamic Republic had many good chances to actually reform like Khatami, but the IRGC and other fundamentalists did not allow change to come. Sanctions contributed to the political and economical reality that led to the people finally stand up for their freedom against the oppressors. As an Iranian, I would hate for this to be a success story and to be used against other people of the world. So much unnecessary death because of not getting medicine and so on. Yeah. Why would we put Iran's theocratic party in power just to sanction them? Wait, what? First of all, is this your first day in America? For 90% of the time, we don't even have to fucking put, well, not 90, 50% of the time, we don't actually have to put the Iranian, like, we didn't put the Iranian fundamentalist government in power. The Iranian fundamentalist government came as a consequence of what America chose to do in Iran. Okay? It's a blowback reactionary force. Okay? Remember, America goes in, fucks shit up because Iran wants to, this is a super simplified version. Iran wants to nationalize its oil extraction. BP says, no, those are oil refineries. You can't do that. You signed a contract. Doesn't matter if it was like vicious. Doesn't matter if it was predatory. You signed a fucking contract. Rules are rules. Okay? They don't like that. They overthrow through CIA and British forces, overthrow the socialist administration that was choosing to do that, okay? And then the person in power, the person that they place in power, the people genuinely despise, okay? Everyone's fucking angry. What happens in that circumstance? The most reactionary forces, the most right-wing forces turn around and become the emancipatory forces. They become righteous. That's what happens. Do you understand? It happened time and time and time again, especially in the Middle East in contemporary history, not that long ago. They weren't even socialists. They were secular nationalists. Without the coup, Iran would look more like Turkey or South Korea today. Yeah, without the coup, Iran did look like Turkey. That's why a lot of Iranians love Turkey. Or historically used to love Turkey because they saw Turkey as like what they were supposed to be like and what they were like. And time again, America and American forces, American State Department has regularly turned the other cheek at reactionary forces, even if they are not directly involved in arming them, funding them, and utilizing them like they did in Afghanistan. They will usually just say, better fundies, better fundamentalists and Islamists and the like that take the government than socialists. Okay? This is an ongoing reality. And this is still happening in many different respects. Okay? That's it. Just like the top of the hour ad break, which comes and goes. But if you want an uninterrupted broadcasting experience at the top of the hour, all you need to do is subscribe. Which you can do for $5 or you can do for free with a Twitch Prime. Connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, you get one free Prime subscription a month. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Here's the 1 minute ad break now.
Are they over it?
They're over the language, over the meanness.
Dylan 11Q, thank you for the 5. Get the subs.
They really, more than anything else, I'll give you one word to close this segment: unity. That is what they're looking for right now, and the more that we can help them achieve that, the better good we are doing.
But again, we'll see. I think you're all right. We have to see what the voters decide. Thank